creators of visual programming tools for software development, is pleased to provide major funding for the Computer Chronicles, the story of this continuing evolution.
Welcome to the Computer Chronicles. I'm Stewart Cheifet, and this is Gary Kildall. Gary, we've done a lot of shows about computer hardware and software, but of course it takes people to design and build these things, and that's the subject of our program today, the people in the computer business, and I guess the Silicon Valley is in fact as famous for its young entrepreneurs as it is for its products. And speaking of young entrepreneurs, you're one of them, having founded Digital Research about 9 or 10 years ago. Gary, how has the people side of this business changed during that period?
Well, I know I've traded in my cowboy boots and blue jeans for a three-piece suit here, so some changes have gone on. I think the biggest change I've seen has been in, say, the impact of just having no products that are competitive at all to a market now where everybody's in there, including IBM, that have multi-million-dollar budgets, and you've got to figure out how to work around big giants like that. It's become much more professional, and the stakes are higher, and it's been a lot more fun, I think.
Okay, we're going to meet some of the superstars of the computer field. We'll meet a man who's called the father of the Silicon Valley. We'll meet a man who revolutionized the computer business by coming out with the first low-cost portable. And we'll meet a woman who didn't know a computer from a commuter, but she's now the CEO of a major computer company. First, let's take a look at some of the other people who played a key role in the evolution of the computer business.
Those of us involved with micros back in 1974, 75, we had not already designed all of the interface cards and the peripherals and the software that goes into the mini computers of the day, or the larger systems. And to us, it was so exciting because it was like we thought we were doing the things for the first time they'd ever been done. And it was the first time they'd ever been done that cheap, using a lot of the LSI technology. And so there was a lot of just the excitement everywhere we went. It was like putting out a little table and showing off a little card that would play music on a computer or make color was the most exciting thing in the world, and we thought we were way ahead of the rest of the world. What I was doing around that time was not even thinking about what are the right steps to take to have a very large successful company or a large successful product. It was just, I had been working my whole life to build a certain type of computer for myself, and I just built the best one that was doable in that day with the particular components available, etc. And in that sense, it wasn't like an intelligence that can lead you towards the right path. It was just being very free. I had the freedom because I was only doing it for myself. It was not a company project where a manager defined what had to be done. So I was lucky to be able to do what I did. Everywhere I go now, I go to business meetings and presentations, and they're all sitting there in three-piece suits. It's a large business. There's a lot of dollars involved. The people who have come out of school trained to run and manage business is the key element today, and that's where most of the creativity is going. There's very few technically creative products in the microcomputer world.
Is a garage operation still feasible in the small computer industry today, or is that stage over?
Well, that stage is pretty much becoming over for hardware. It used to be people could quickly manufacture some simple little PC boards on a small budget, get an ad in a little hobbyist magazine and start selling a bunch of them. And so very small entrepreneurships, thousands of them sprung up, many of them centered around Apple. That was probably the biggest direction to go. Now it's pretty much that's possible for software groups to come up with a good software project, and there are avenues to find companies that will market it for you or turn it into a product if you got something good going. Perhaps once a decade, a very large market comes from zero up to billions of dollars within a few years. It's very rare that there's such a dramatic explosion out of nowhere of a new market. It may happen again in microelectronics and computers before too long. Maybe every 10 years, a new group of people come out, and they haven't been along with the Apple and the thousands of peripherals and the thousands of softwares, and they think every time they're doing it for the first time ever. They're going to get a couple of their own hobby computer magazines that are in their group. They don't come to our group. They're going to start talking and having little trade shows and showing each other projects, and they'll start new businesses of their own, and I think that's probably about to happen. It's like you go to a trade show, and they pull up in their mobile home, and it's a little garage shop, they pull it out the back, and they show it off, and you want to buy a couple? And these may be very large companies in a few years. But right now we all shun them on them. We just say, that's just a couple of guys who drove out of their home with it. That's what they said about us. Yes. You can understand it. When you're looking down on someone else, you can understand how you were perceived back in those days, and then you also realize they were right. It's just a quirk of fate that they were wrong.
Joining us now is Adam Osborne, formerly of Osborne Computers and now CEO of Paperback Software, Inc., and Laurie Harp, CEO of Vector Graphic. Gary?
You know, Adam, you and Laurie have been in this business for a long time, as long as I have. In fact, I remember you when we were at Intel, we were working on some documentation together, and that must have been in '73.
That's right. Yes.
And I know that a lot of viewers probably have some questions about, you know, is it possible really to get into this industry now, or has it been completely dominated by companies like IBM and Tandy and so forth? Is there a place for a young inventor to really make his mark?
Well, I think that all depends really in what area. If you want to build a microcomputer, it's probably not a good idea at this point because it's going to be the clash of the titans now. There's nothing high-tech about microcomputers anymore. It's very simply, you know, it's like building a washing machine or a refrigerator, quite honestly. It's the economics of volume and reliability, and that's it. That's the end of it. If, on the other hand, you want to go into some other area, good grief, you know, there's probably more opportunities today than there's ever been. It's just that you're better off building razor blades rather than razors.
If the opportunities are not in computers, where are these areas in which there are opportunities?
Peripherals, add-ons, software. You know, you can make a lot of money with extra cards that'll fit into a popular computer, attachments, peripherals, particularly the software industry. Now, it's very much in its infancy right now. The organization and methodology is going to undergo massive change, but on the other hand, there will be probably 10 to 100 times as much software sold every year, 5 or 6 years from now, as there is now. Obviously, that's hypergrowth. Obviously, that's where there are the opportunities.
Adam, you talked about the titans, by the way. Who do you see as the titans right now?
Well, IBM's obviously there. I'm quite certain that AT&T are going to come in to challenge them in a big way, and there will be one or more Japanese companies that come in as well, and they're going to dominate the market.
Laura, you are in the business of making computers now. Do you agree with Adam's perspective?
Yes, I would say, you know, what he said is pretty accurate. And to just go back to your first question, is it possible for companies to get started today? I think the costs involved are going to be prohibitive. When we started our company, you know, you could do it with $5,000, a lot of sleepless nights, and you would be rolling. Today, that's an impossibility. I mean, capitalization has to be several $1 million, and you still, I don't think, have enough money to really get enough critical mass in short enough of a period of time to, you know, to be one of the contenders. But the peripheral market, and I think especially in the area of communications, is going to be extremely significant to make add-on devices that link the kind of systems that have been installed to, you know, together.
When you talk about communications, you mean like communications with the source or CompuServe and hooking small computers up with the...
Yes, that's part of it, right.
I think another important point is that large companies, the titans, really only get into an area of software hardware when it's been proven to be successful. IBM is a good example of that.
Oh, absolutely.
And the small garage shop operations have opportunities where the large company is just not willing to put the effort. Yeah. And so those are the spin-off areas that I think that will be...
There's also price consideration as well. When people are talking about investing thousands of dollars, they tend to be very careful about where they're buying because it's an investment. When they're buying a $50 product, or even up to maybe sometimes a couple of $100, they say, what the heck? If it doesn't work, I've learned something. That's why a lot of these very inexpensive computers sold as well as they did later just to collect dust. There never will be an IBM in software, for example, because you're now eventually you'll be dealing with $50 products. And there's the vicariousness of human nature. Everyone's going to want to buy that little something different. And it's only a $50 investment.
That's where a lot of the real inventors are going to show up, would be in the software area.
Right.
There's a comment you just made about the number of small computers that are gathering dust. Do you have any just ideas of what you think the number of, or the percentage, say, of personal computers that, let's say, below the $1,000 mark, that are actually being used productively, you know, in, say, a home or...
I would say probably 50% are catching dust. You know, I have no way to totally substantiate that because I don't think a lot of research has been done on non-utilization of computers. But I personally know several people who had gone out in the, you know, early days, bought a Radio Shack, bought, you know, the early available computers, and are going out now. They bring them home, and they really suddenly realize they don't have quite the need they thought they had for a system. I would say probably 50%. I don't know if you agree with that, Adam, but...
Well, we've done a little bit of research in this area. It does tend to vary quite a lot by brand. The ZX80 and ZX81, probably more than any, are now collecting dust, simply because they were bought initially by people who just wanted to find out what a computer was all about, and they spent $100 doing it. So that it served its purpose, so the fact it's collecting dust is no longer an indictment of the product. The Commodore 64, we find, more than any is collecting dust, and that's a lot of it to do with reliability problems, where people just say, well, you know, they're just not going to get it fixed when it stops working. It only costs $200 in the first place.
It seems like a lot of the inventiveness that's going to go into software is really going to be around products that really make personal computers are useful in the home, and take them out of the closet. Well, if they haven't been purchased yet, but actually make when they come into a home that they're actually used in a way that's productive.
Is that a concern of the industry, Adam? You suggested, well, it doesn't matter, something like the Sinclair. Well, it served its purpose. Or are people in this industry concerned about making sure that, I assume you want people to use these products, because then they'll go out and buy the peripherals and buy the software and so on?
Well, it depends really on each company in what direction the company is going into. We, for example, have no intention of going into the home computer market where, you know, you go into this under $500 rat race. I mean, the economies of scale in manufacturing must, you know, companies such as ours can never accomplish that. So, you know, from my vantage point, it's not an area I'm interested in. I mean, anything under $3,000 is, you know, an absolute no, you know, for our company.
We hear about the falling out that is starting to take place and will take place in the computer field, and Adam, people cite your company is one of those examples. Is that, in fact, something that has to happen and is going to happen?
Well, Osborne Computer's failure was nothing to do with falling out. It was nothing to do with industry competition or collapse. The company, plain and simple, committed suicide. All I will say about it right now is that everything you have read in the paper you can hit the reset button on, because it's not right. This is not yet the right time for me to say what really happened, so I'm not going to.
So you don't, Adam.
That's right. No, but very specifically, your answer is partially yes and partially no. If IBM were not consuming 70% of the market, which they are right now, today. You know, the numbers that you read about are actually inaccurate. IBM dominates the market far more than any of the statistics you read. What I like to say, you know, I've said before, is that IBM is one, there is no second. You know, after IBM, it picks up again at somewhere like 5th or 6th. You know, if they weren't there, clearly a lot of other people would be able to do a lot better. But on the other hand, if you take 30% of the market, it is so huge that it will support an awful lot of people who are selling 3, 4, 5, 10,000 computers a month. Sure, there'll be a shakeout, but then, you know, there's been a shakeout in the hardware industry. Gary, you remember a lot of the early companies. Where's IMSI? You know, where's NIST? Yes, I mean, it's been going on for years. It's nothing new.
Okay, you mentioned IBM, and of course IBM is a key player. We're going to soon meet a gentleman who played a key role at IBM and in the IBM competitors. That's coming up in just a moment. Joining us now is Gene Amdahl, formerly of IBM, formerly of Amdahl Corporation, and now of Trilogy Systems, Inc. Welcome, Gene.
Gene, I think it's very interesting to have your perspective on IBM and the IBM PC lookalikes that have come out here, because you've been, if there's anybody that's been working with following IBM and trying to get at that customer's base, it's been Amdahl. And so what is your feeling about the IBM PC clones or the lookalikes? Can they be successful?
Well, I'm not as familiar with the PC area as I am with the large computer area, but I am quite familiar with IBM, and their pattern really hasn't changed over all of the years that I've known them. And that is, they move into a field when the field is just proven well enough in terms of it becoming of a size sufficiently large to be of interest, and secondly, that somebody has learned what it takes to satisfy that market. Once this is learned, IBM is then ready to move in for their share of the action. And if they have the same degree of success in this area as they had in the high performance area, their architecture will become a de facto standard, not because they will have the best architecture, but because so many people will be expecting them to be successful. And the cost of developing your applications on even your personal computer are going to be sufficiently great so that even as a person, an individual, you really won't like to change architectures in order to progress through the advancements.
Now, how do you track a change that IBM might make in the future? If there's one company that I've seen that's probably more secure than even Mattel or the U.S. government has been IBM. And when you stock up your large inventory, how do you take care of that transition IBM might make, say, in a moment's notice?
Well, you can't do it perfectly, but if you are in a portion of the field where the technology or certain functional limitations have formed the boundary of where you could go, as those possibilities get moved forward, then, or as you expect them to be moved forward, you can expect that the offerings by IBM are most likely going to move in that direction.
Okay,
and
so you have sort of
prepare.
indicators of what's going on, right? Laurie, I know that you've been involved very closely with the whole industry as it's switched toward IBM hardware. What are your feelings about the PC clones?
In my opinion, they're not going to have a future. I think right now they're enjoying a tremendous wave because of the inability of IBM to deliver in sufficient quantities. And I think most of the clone companies, if you look at them carefully, are not creating any value. They are putting hardware together, they're buying software that is available to everyone, and they're not really creating anything that makes them proprietary. And I believe that if IBM takes a different turn, a lot of the software generators will follow suit in many of the clone companies, have to protect some of their installed base, and I don't think they can turn as quickly as IBM will, because IBM will have planned this move, a year or more in advance. So quite frankly, I don't think that, they're going to be a long-term solution.
Adam, you described earlier the computer business now is like the dishwasher business, basically, and Gene said that IBM's power is really not that it has a better technology. Is the computer business now not really as technology-driven, but marketing and advertising and packaging?
Well, I think that the major difference between the PC market as it is today and the industry that Gene was talking about is the fact that it's really got nothing to do with high-tech anymore. For that reason, I would both agree and disagree with what Laurie said. I think the bulk of the clone companies existing today won't make it. The reason is that they look upon themselves as computer manufacturers. However, I believe that there is a vast market for clone companies. The reason is that a rough kind of estimate that we've made is that there's something like 15% of the market where hell will freeze over before they'll buy IBM. There's 15% of another 15% of the market that don't care, and 70% of the market who prefer IBM. Now, 15% of the market is huge. Furthermore, there's another consideration. If you're talking about people who are looking at it as though it's a dishwasher or a refrigerator, you're now talking about people who can come in to a huge installed base. IBM is shipping 10,000 PCs a day right now. It doesn't really matter very much if they do go on to something else. The base they leave behind is so big that there are a lot of people can run out their inventories. And furthermore, because they're building entirely on a low-cost, high-quality basis, you get somebody who comes in who knows how to manufacture, and they can start eating into the IBM PC market more than they ever could a mainframe market, because it's the same. For the very fact that it's the same, people eventually say, well, what have I got to lose? If a piece goes wrong, it's almost interchangeable.
So the companies that would be successful are the ones that think of themselves as manufacturing companies rather than computer companies.
That's right, absolutely.
Gene, you've been in this for a long time, starting Amdahl some time ago, starting Trilogy recently. Let's talk about the venture capital situation. How is it different now in trying to get a computer company going than it was a decade ago?
Well, a decade ago, there was a great recession. There was also a situation in which the capital gains taxes were much higher than they are today, some 50%. With the capital gains taxes like that, and with the recession, the stock market for new issues was abysmal, to say the least. It was essentially non-functional entirely.
And how about today?
Today, there's a rather buoyant market, extremely buoyant compared to 10 years ago.
Lori, what's your perspective on venture capital today? You just went through that, didn't you?
Well, I went through it twice, once in '79 when the venture capital pool was just growing, and I went through it again today. It depends on at what point in time you actually go out to look for money. In the history of Vector, having gone through the difficulties we have gone through, we did not have too much leverage to determine determine price because we needed the cash so badly. But in many startup situations where you have something that has a very good angle, you are the ones who can really, you're the one who can essentially determine price, because there are not that many good deals around, but there's a tremendous amount of venture capital available.
I'm sorry we're out of time. Thanks so much, all of you, for being here with us. Thank you for joining us on this edition of the Computer Chronicles.
Microfocus, creators of visual programming tools for software development, is pleased to provide major funding for the Computer Chronicles, the story of this continuing evolution.